D.
There was no greeting ceremony, and we basically were told to run to our cars. Now, that is what happened. I remember landing under sniper fire. There was supposed to be some kind of a greeting ceremony at the airport, but instead we just ran with our heads down to get into the vehicles to get to our base.
All right, that was a little while ago. That thing is playing on YouTube, I think, today, the CBS News report. Now, here's what Senator Hillary had to say today on this subject.
I made a mistake, and, you know, I had a different memory, and my, my staff and others have, all kind of come together trying to sort out. So I made a mistake. That happens. It proves I'm human, which, for some people is a revelation.
All right, the Hilary Bosnia botch opens the door even wider for Senator John McCain, who I think is the ultimate winner in this political game and for the markets. We're back with our panel, Quentin Hardy, Jerry Bowyer, Vince Farrell, Kim Cawhey. Jerry Bowyer, I just think this is bullish for stocks because McCain's the low-tax, pro-capitalist guy in the race, and I think Hillary botched this very badly. Got a thought on this episode?
Yeah, you remember Michael Dukakis in the tank? This feels a little bit like that. That was that national security commander-in-chief gap. All right, so this kind of has that feeling that maybe, she's sort of gilding the lily a little bit about her foreign policy credentials, and instead of running away from snipers, she was actually shaking a little girl's hand. This is one of those images that just kind of accentuates that she's probably not ready to be the commander-in-chief. And since she's to the left of McCain on economic issues, this makes it more likely McCain will win, and that's better for the Dow.
I mean, Quentin Hardy, you must confess that commensurate with the Farrell bottom, going back to late January, is the McCain political primary nomination surge. I don't believe that's a coincidence. In fact, McCain is now running almost 10 points ahead in the national race, and you ought to look at the rise in his favorables and the decline in his negatives, whereas Obama, their negatives are rising and their favorables are falling, Quentin.
So, Republicans good, Democrats bad, it's as simple as that.
But not necessarily.
I don't think so.
Not this year.
I mean, obviously not necessarily. We got a president who hasn't delivered over 8 years, so maybe following in his footsteps isn't a really great idea where the stock market's concerned.
I was going to think of Richard Nixon. I was going to think of Richard Nixon as somebody who got the message wrong. Certainly,
and
George.
It's 1973 all over the place again.
Certainly, George Bush's lower tax rates and free trade policies is the antithesis of Nixonian Hooverism.
Let's stick with Hillary. As I said to the Pope just before I told him to load up on the Microsoft IPO, nobody's memory is perfect. And Hillary simply confused her landing in Bosnia and ducking her way into the car with the second inaugural, where they probably had to duck into their car. It makes McCain really lucky because last week he couldn't tell Sunnis from Shiites, and now that's all forgotten in Hillary. But it really helps Obama because he recovered so beautifully with his speech, and she got petulant with her recovery. That's the big comparison.
Obama has a memory problem, too, because when first asked if he was sitting in on these Black Power anti-American sermons from Reverend Jeremiah Wright, he said no, he'd never heard it before. Then, oops, it turns out he did hear it. And then, oops, he decided to give an entire speech about it, which, oops, was something of a non-denial denial. So I want to ask...
My point is they've all got something. She recovers the worst of the three.
Well, and I want to say, I think, by the way, the Iranians are arming al-Qaeda, but that's just my personal view. I want to ask you, Vince Farrell, author of the Farrell Bottom, which is still the most important investment thought of the new year.
We've got 3 words to the book written, the Farrell Bottom.
I'm going to write the for it. I'm not going to even charge you for it. But I do want to know.
Well, that's good, because we're not going to sell many.
Does the McCain surge play into the Farrell Bottom and the stock market rally?
It does. Now, I'm not a political person. You know that. So I have 2 thoughts on this. One is that Obama has some issues. He recovered nicely, as Quentin just pointed out, but there's still a lingering doubt in people's minds. Senator Clinton has had significant negatives all along. What happens when this goes to convention utterly deadlocked and both sides are entrenched and really mad at one another? Because that's what it's going to be. How does that work out? And as far as the market is concerned, the market is saying, hey, it looks like both of these candidates are in a real catfight and it's going to last for a while. And here is this other guy that we think might be better for the market, to be determined, but I think so. And, gee, all of a sudden we have an activist Fed, We have a much more level playing field from what you would have said a couple of months ago on the election, and Senator McCain is looking more attractive. The market likes this. I think the bottom was put in place really by aggressive Fed action. The Fed seems to have gotten it.
Hang on there, because I want to just mention Robert Lenzner of Forbes.com.
Forbes magazine,
the Bernanke bull market. He said the Fed became the lender of last resort by taking responsibility for the $29 billion in Bear Stearns' lousy collateral. He says then they opened the window to Lehman Brothers and Goldman Sachs. He cites former Treasury man Robert Rubin, who suggested a few days ago that these bold Fed moves probably saved the economy from a serious depression. That from Mr. Rubin. And then finally he says Bernanke is the fastest makeover from a clod behind the curve to the savior of the system. So I am personally willing to concede, besides the McCain surge, Bernanke's done a lot of good things, and therefore stocks are rising nicely, and Quentin Hardy's black shade of pessimism is being proven wrong.
You know, Larry, I don't want to criticize Bernanke for opening up the window, the discount window to the investment banks. That should have been done 10 years ago. When Glass-Steagall was repealed, and they said the barriers are down, we're going to treat investment banks and commercial banks the same, except they didn't give them access to the window. But these are the guys that are underwriting the government securities. They had to have access. That's a lot of technical stuff, I'm sorry, but all they've done is catch up to where they should have been 10 years ago. It came at a critical time, and that's why the market bottomed.
What you got, by the way, Kim Cawhey, I got to finish this off, but when you look at this, the Farrell bottom, which I take seriously, January 22nd, not only is the Dow, the S&P, and the NAS up, but when you look at the broader indexes, for example, the Wilshire 5000 is up almost 3.5%. Interestingly, the small-cap Russell 2000 is up 5%. So do you subscribe to the bottom in the market, Kim?
You know what? I still think most things in this market are tied to housing prices. I really hate to be a pessimist. I am a capitalist. I really am. But I'm looking at those housing prices, and if they keep falling, banks are going to have to, keep foreclosing and write those assets down, and it's troubling going into the future.
I can't believe you're watching the same show that I'm watching, where we just had this guy saying, I've got 60 auctions going around the country this year, and prices are changing hands at 70 to 90% of what the mortgage was. This stuff is clearing out.
Tomorrow's new prices will tell us. And they are, but there are a lot of homes on the market.
Our job is to look around the corner a little bit.
Hey, Jerry Bowyer on the way out. I got to go fast. Yeah. Dow Transport's up 17.5% since January 22nd. Transports, as in economically sensitive transports. Is that forecasting a depression?
No, it's forecasting a recovery. I think that we've been through the worst of it. Honestly, I think it's maybe a one quarter negative growth, a half a recession is what we got, and we're already into the next cycle.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Vince Farrell and Kim Cawhey, thank you ever so much. Quentin Hardy, Jerry Bowyer got a little more duty to do later in the program. Up next is Big Mac Just Say No to Bailouts. Senator McCain's top economic advisor, Jack Kemp, is going to tell us all about it. Please check out my latest blog on why Hillary's embarrassing flap over Bosnia helps John McCain and stocks. Go to, please, kudlowblog.cnbc.com. And as always, we are firm believers in the Kudlow Creed.
I believe free market capitalism is the best path to prosperity.